And have you got a pen and paper? So there's going to be lots of stats thrown at you, which we will discuss in a minute. So this month's Legacy Loop is all about looking at trends, looking at what's going on in the world that we see, and running that through the lens of you as fundraisers, working with supporters, and having the conversations on the lead up to people committing to being pledgers, which is the only slice of the story we get to. My name's Oliver. I'm a solicitor. I've been founded Makerwell Online in 2008, and I've been working with charities with our legacy giving work since we launched it in 2017. And Marie?
Yeah, so obviously, as you know, I'm Marie, your charity partnership manager. So I work with around about 120 charities, helping them obviously implement our service, but providing ongoing support. And I'm really excited to share some of our data insights from our charity platform with you all. So as we go through, like Oliver's mentioned, if you've got sort of useful insights and thoughts, just jot them down, as they might be useful to sort of look at in the breakout room sessions. Okay, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat as always, and there's going to be time for sort of looking at those questions and a bit of a further discussion at the end as well.
We've got a breakout room for every section.
So what we're going to be doing is basically looking at our 2025 data. So we're going to understand supporter behaviour when writing a will. Look at what the data tells us about completion and engagement. Also look at legacy gift behaviour and supporter age trends, and also look at some benchmarking across charities by size. Okay.
So let's kick off. Let's look at when and how people are making their wills through our platform. And it's really, really important that with everything we say, we only have insight in what's going on Make a Will Online. And that's to say that when people have started their will with us, we know when people finish their wills and we send out the final product, we know that. We have no insight on what people do off platform, and you might have a lot. And if you don't have a lot, there may be a huge opportunity to get way more insight into what your supporters are actually doing. So, first of all, taking a long view on the year, people are making wills all year long. Weirdly, for gifts and wills for charities, there's not an anomalous dip during the month of December. December is the quietest month, bar none, for us, and it has been since we launched in 2008. But for charities, it's kind of trundles along. But there are a couple of spikes. There's spikes in spring, and there's spikes in autumn. And I think you, as a sector, have the answers to why that might be.
So if we now look at sort of day by day, so what's happening during the week, as you can see, will completions are highest during weekdays. So you could draw from this that, supporters are engaging during their normal weekly routines.
And again, for the day, I'm not sure what or how this might affect the way that you communicate or the channels that you communicate. But people make their will during the working day, typically. With a spike in the morning, people get that thing done before lunchtime. Then it tails off from mid-morning onwards.
So if we look at completion and engagement, so just over half of our wills are not completed and abandoned. So we've got 48% of our wills that are completed, and we've got 52% that are abandoned on our platform. So these wills that are not completed, they can provide opportunities to strengthen your support of follow-up and conversations. In that data that we provide for the wills that aren't completed, you'll see, you'll be able to see if they've got actually towards the end of the process, and you might actually see that some wills that aren't completed have actually got gifts included in them. And they've also perhaps given you consent to contact them as well. So these are warm supporters, but also even if the data, basically you've got some incompleted wills, they don't show any gifts in those wills, that might mean that they have actually, they've not got as far as that during the sort of platform. So they still, if they've given you that consent to contact, there still should be, a warm intender, a warm supporter that's open to gifts in wills, and you can potentially steward those and increase those conversations. And also you might be able to capture, if they've actually started on our platform and maybe gone off and done it, face to face as well, and included that gift.
Yep. So it shows everybody who started the process but not finished. 48% of people who've ever started the process have finished. Now, when are people completing the process? Of the 48% who do it or have done it, 82% do it straight off. Then we've got a fairly long tail. So we might want to nudge up our stats slightly on the completion rates, because people can do it within a few weeks or longer. Only 1% of people wait for more than 3 weeks. Typically, they might represent people who think, oh, actually, I don't want to do my will now, or people who complete their will using another channel. So they might go and see their solicitor. They might realise that they have needs that go beyond the simple online will service. If you've got that consent to contact them, that can give you so much valuable information on the people who haven't. And also, some people might just need a little nudge, and they might need a reminder of what values they want to live on. So that contact from you can be very valuable.
So if we look at the percentage of people that are opting in for you to consent to contact them, so we've got 45% that are saying yes, they're happy for you to thank them for any gifts that they've left, and also to keep in touch. So that's nearly half are open to be contacted. Obviously, some of those will also be, like we've said, in your incompleted wills. So it provides you, strong foundations for meaningful stewardship of your supporters.
Great. And don't forget that when you've got consent to contact, that's as soon as they start interacting with the platform. That's not when they've completed their will. That's people who are considering it and going through the process. So for supporter behaviours, and I must stress this is just for charity supporters, our wider data set for the general public who use our service is different. It's different in the completion rates. It's different in the when people and how people make wills. So it is an interesting kind of slice into the segment of the people who care so deeply about your causes that they're considering leaving a gift in their will. It's done during their week. So what does that mean for you? It's done during the weekdays. Again, so what does that mean for you? What kind of decision are they making when they're choosing to support your charity? And how does that affect the way that you speak with them? Is it an event activity that they're taking out, or is it something which just slots into their days? And does that make a difference? And we're going to take a short break now. We're going to pop into randomized meeting rooms. If you can talk about any ways that what we've told you might affect the nature, quantity, type of contact that you have with your supporters about gifting, well, and I think the whole room would be really interested to learn about it. So 3 minutes now in a breakout. Have a think. If you want to just take a screenshot of this slide so it's on your so that you can refer back to it. And then we'll have a couple of comments from the groups and get on with other information. And if you've got any questions, do ask them after the breakout as well. So quick breakout now, and speak within a few minutes. Thank you. So what, if anything, did came out? I'll kick off from my room, which is probably cheating, but hey, thank you, Katie, Leslie, Steph. A bit early in the legacy journey for a lot of the people in my room to really dig into it, but there were participants in the Make a Wills months, which showed a peak on the annual basis. Anybody from any of the other rooms with any just short thoughts or any questions on what we've shared so far?
I think I was in room two, and one of the things I think that surprised me, and I think the others, was that we were surprised of people making decisions, making their wills during the week, during sort of office hours. Um, I did mention that I assumed that it would be some people would do on the weekend, but that was interesting, and that will be something we can feedback. I can feedback to our comms team about when we put out our social media posts. Find out what time, because I don't actually know what times they go out. So check with them what times they go out, and maybe if they're not going out during the daytime, to see if we can get that shifted.
Well, yeah, it depends how likely your people are to be on the social media during the day. But the wills are a decision which can take months before action is taken. And I think is it just a reflection of when people are sitting in front of a desktop? Is it a reflection of when people see the messaging? Is it what is going on? We only have the end point. So understanding the pledger journey from when did they become a Nintendo? When did they think about it? Is a really interesting question, which could inform the comms there. Um, we only see the end point, and that is during the day, which is great. Um,
That's interesting.
One other comment from another room, and then we will get on with it. Any volunteers, or is Marie going to find one?
So yeah, room 3 was Claire, Jenny, Molly, Nicola, Rose, and Sam. Anybody in that group wants to?
I'll speak, that's fine. We just spoke briefly about how it doesn't necessarily show big life events that people might be using to make decisions to write a will. So it's hard to tell from the data that you've shared what impact that has if someone's just bought a house or just got married or just had children. And something else, I guess, that has occurred to me is around it'd be interesting to have an age overlay of the typical age profile of people who use your platform to see how that affects when people are making their wills.
What a wonderful point. It really does. And it will segue very nicely into a future section that we're about to get to. Yeah, the life events thing, suffering a bereavement obviously is a big one as well. People will make their wills when something happens that makes them think, oh, I better make my will. And they can be really positive, really exciting times in people's lives, also difficult times. So hence the amazing amount of consideration and caution that I see everybody in the sector using when they're communicating around gifts and wills. So
I think as well that it might be obviously I was interested to see that people making the decisions during the week in working hours, sort of a little bit like, any transaction that people would do, like paying a bill or something like that. But also it would have been really interesting to look at the data pre-pandemic before people had a bit more flexibility with how they actually worked and things like that. So I think that could really have an influence on, when you are sat at your desk, if you are literally working from home, the
you
bits
can
of
do it. That's
time that you can
food for a
do.
future session. That's something which
Yeah.
we might be able to access, Marie. Thank you. Yeah. Now onto the onto the next section of talking about what people are pledging before we get to the age and demographic breakdown or the charity size breakdown. Let's have a look at the way and how people engage. So, of all of the wills that have been made through our charity gifts and will schemes, 47% of them do include a gift. Unfortunately, that means 53% don't. A lot of the time, their partners, spouses are people who do, but not always. Sometimes people just want the access to a will when they can't or don't want to pay for it. Amazing news around the number of residuary gifts. So those are either a percentage of somebody's estate, typically between 1 and 10%, or a contingent gift of everything, but only if the named residuary beneficiaries have died before them. And in those gifts, yes, I say 41% residuary gifts, 59% are people who leave a pecuniary legacy. So it's a fixed amount of money. And we'll go into what those fixed amount of money look like in a minute. First of all, residuary gifts, Marie.
Yeah, so if we look at a bit closer at the residuary gifts, so we can see we've got some spikes around 1%, 5%, and 10%. So we know on our platform that we do have a 10% anchor point. So when somebody chooses you and they want to leave a residuary gift, it does default to 10%. So this means, that anchors, can be really useful, because 1%, 5%, and 10% are pretty interesting figures if you think about it. Obviously, other people do leave other percentages as well. But I think that is really interesting. So I'm not sure if that's something that you might want to look at is to, when you're messaging, do you actually use anchor points? And maybe you could do some testing and see if you started to use them, if it would actually change the results that you're seeing.
Yeah, thanks. With the cash pledges, the pecuniary legacies, we've got an average. We've got an average which is actually quite high, and that's skewed upwards. We see lots of gifts around the £100 mark, and we don't have any anchoring there. And I'd be really interested to know back from the breakout groups what success looks like for you when it comes to pecuniary legacies and the amounts that people leave, and whether and how your messaging around pecuniary legacies is led. So those are the slides that we've got around the type of gifts that people leave. We've got a good split between pecuniary legacies and residuary gifts. We've got spikes in the amount of residuaries. I don't know what your messaging is. If you say leave even 1% or 5% or leave a small percentage, and what, if anything, you'd like to do to turn that dial. What we can do about the pecuniary legacies, because any gift from a supporter is a wonderful expression of support, lifelong support of what you do. Some expressions can help the charity more, and the £50 gifts or £100 gifts is something which we want to kind of work with the charities to get a better representation of the push it towards the mean gift in the country, which is much higher. So 3 minutes to have a breakout and think about what your messaging does and how or if that informs the types of gifts that your supporters leave.
Oh, okay. So it's
And in the meantime, I'm going to do a short song and dance whilst Marie.
I wanted to change the groups, and it's just defaulted to the
Oh,
groups
it's
that you were in
fine.
last
Let's
time.
just go ahead and do that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. We resolved that before I did any singing or dancing, I think, for everybody's sake. See you back out here. So, what insights or what thoughts did anybody have, if any, about the type of gifts that people are leaving and how that compares with your own, or is there any next steps which you can do after this meeting to change anything, with the understanding that you've got of what we see on our platform?
we were looking at the messaging around having like a 1%. A lot of us, I think we all had sort of the 1% initially as a starting point for residuary pledges, but we as an organisation we've moved away from that and have gone up to 10%. But we're also reviewing that and maybe just not having a percentage at all and just like leaving up to the supporter to decide, but to stress the value of residuary gifts as opposed to pecuniary ones.
So how would you frame it if not as a percentage? What would be the how would you turn that around?
I don't know. I think we would try to show how a residuary gift paid out after all the benefit. Stress the point that all the beneficiaries would be left what the deceased person wants them to have. So it's going to be after all of those costs have gone out. Then anything that's left, we'd be very grateful for. Kind of something around that, I think.
Yeah, great. And I'll let someone from my group chip in. We had a similar discussion. I won't let anyone from my group then. Everyone's feeling a bit shy. Was there anything else apart from that 1% message? Because that came up in our group as well. Does anybody draw anything else from the information that came through? Did anybody address any thoughts about pecuniary gifts at all in any of your groups?
Yeah, we did in our group. We did talk about not having any messaging around pecuniary gift values, and that's something that also we've not really given any thought to, but maybe we should. Well, I should definitely.
Yeah, it's really hard because when someone's on your website, what messages do they see about gifts? Because if they've clicked around how I can give, or can I set up a direct debit? Can I run the marathon? And then they click on legacies. Where are they anchored? And is there anything that you need to do about that?
Definitely, we don't have anything like that on our website, so it's definitely something we need to think about and look at doing.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to get on to what I think may be
Just want to answer Caroline's question as well. Caroline's asked, are the figures per charity or overall charity pledge? So the data that we're looking at the moment is all the wills that have been made on all the charity platforms overall. So it's not specifically per charity. It's across the board.
You'll be able to see in your monthly reports, and when you log in, you'll be able to see your own charity performance. So please, if you don't log in and check, or if you don't see the reports come through, ask the person or the owner of the email address that's logged in to see those, to get your individual charity.
Can I just clarify? My question was more about so for example, you've got the spike at 5%. Is that per gift that somebody's left in their will, or is it 10% of their residuary estate split between different charities? Does that make sense?
So that would be just to the one charity that signed up with us for Celiac UK. It would be if somebody left a gift of 5% to you, that would show. If they left a gift of 5% to any other charity and it's not through your platform, then it wouldn't show there.
Okay, thank you.
It's broadly similar spikes to gifts to charities that aren't part of the Make a Will Online setup. But without further ado, I think it was Lucy that was asking about demographics earlier. We want to tell you about demographics. We want to tell you about how people are interacting with our website. So the first thing is who's leaving gifts. We've got a little unknown people. The age field is not a required field, so some people go through without sharing that information with us, which is fine. It's not required in order to complete a will, but most people, the vast majority of people, do share their ages. And this is the percentage of the people of that age range who choose to leave a gift in their will. So people who are 35 to 44 are less likely, 30%, than the other age ranges. The people who are most likely are 55 to 64, followed by 85 plus. Make of that what you will. I don't know why the 35 to 44 might be lower. Other things going in people's lives, big mortgages, young families, who knows? Marie.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the types of gifts by age groups. So here, basically, you can see the percentage of people in a particular age group, what percentage of them are leaving cash pledges, what percentage are leaving residuary gifts, and what percentage are leaving contingent residuary gifts. So we can see that.
Let me just hop in there, Marie, because I know there's some people who do lots of different areas of fundraising. A residuary gift is where someone gives you a single figure or double figure percentage of their estate, and they'll get that when they die. The contingency gift is I'll give you everything, 100% of my estate, but only if the other residuary beneficiaries have died before me. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So here we can sort of see that the sort of middle section, you know, from sort of 35 through up to about 74, there are sort of a similar split between the amount of people, the percentage of people leaving cash pledges and the percentage of people leaving residuary gifts. And then we've got basically 85 plus, everybody in that age group left a cash pledge. And then younger people, everybody left a residuary gift. So yeah, it's varying basically. But I think it's interesting.
Super. And now, what percentage are people leaving? The 18 to 25. As you can imagine, not many people are making will at that age, but the average percentage of residuary gift there was 10%. And drops at the 35 to 44 age range again. People are leaving on average 3%, and then it kind of pops back off and tapers down to 85. 85 plus, again, as we said, we didn't have any residuary gifts. And Marie, cash pledges, bit of a confusing slide. We got rid of an outlier. There was a very, very generous individual who highly skewed this. So let's look at the lower graph there, which takes away that very, very generous gift.
Yeah, so here we're basically showing you the average cash pledges per age group demographic. So in general, it's quite varied. We've got quite low cash pledges in the older age group, and quite high average cash pledges in the younger age groups, with a peak, slight peak around the mid, 55 to 64 and 65 to 74, and then 75 to 84, sort of a block of sort of around that £1,000 average cash pledge.
Yeah, I just want to point out with this as well that we have not run any, if people love t-tests or other deeper statistical analysis, standard deviations and stuff, these are anecdotal figures. They're from our sample sizes, and we have not run statistical tests on these, but they show they paint a picture. So we can see that there's a kind of arc in people's lives. We have greater generosity in the mid 50s. We see maybe more considered gifts when people are making their wills in their older age. I can think of I don't know why that might be. What I want you to think about, especially because of the comment about these being anecdotal, we also, on top of that, we're only seeing people's behaviors online. You see people's behaviors in the whole. What can you take from that if you compare the online gifting to the gifting in the sector as a whole? and what implications does this have with the different age ranges, different types of communications? Will anything change? Something to think about in this breakout session. So 3 minutes again to consider.
Also, I don't know if everybody's seen Lucy's comment in the chat where their charity, their sort of average cash gift, pecuniary gift is £3,000, and they specifically advertise and message about the daily costs to manage their nature reserves. So that's quite interesting. And Nicola, she's asking, does it represent actual money in terms of cash gifts? I think you asked that question before we looked at the cash gift slides.
So yeah, pecuniary legacies are a fixed amount of money. Residuaries are not, and we can't. There's no way to tell what a residuary legacy is going to be. Right. Shall we get on with this breakout and then do our final
Yes.
section, the types and types of gifts and age of supporters leaving gifts.
Shall I say something from our group? So I asked the question about, was anyone surprised that younger people had put residuary gifts in and older people would put cash gifts in? Because that surprised me. But actually, I can't remember who came back with saying, well, and we sort of talked around it a little bit, but actually younger people, and it might be a small data set as well, are getting the free will. They're thinking, right, well, I haven't got cash right now, but I can conceptually think, well, I can put a percentage in there. They haven't, at that age, they're less likely to have lots of beneficiaries that they're thinking about first. Whereas older people may be thinking, well, I'm going to have all these costs, plus I've got all these other beneficiaries, and it's more of a token thing. But then the point I was just about to come round to was, is that an education thing then for older people to actually say, well, actually, if your estate is worth this and it gets depleted and you've put a cash gift in, that cash gift is going to stand. Whereas that it's better to actually put a residual gift in if your estate gets smaller. But maybe at 85, they're not imagining it is going to get smaller because there's not too many more years left. All these different thoughts that people might go through.
They are the most expensive years of people's lives potentially, especially if they end up in a situation where they have to be cared for. So it is an interesting message, and I always remember anecdotally of a very wealthy donor before I was practicing in the 80s, left a gift of £10,000. A series of bad business decisions and care. He had £17,500 in his account when he died, which is the statutory minimum for receiving for having to fund your own care. And that 10,000 was way more than he might have wanted to give, as more than 50%. But yeah, I love residuaries. When people get wealthier, they go up, and sometimes people do have that bad luck. Any other points about age before I run up? Any other points about the age groups? Super. Before we do that, I just want to know if this information has been useful. Can I have a show of hands if anybody would like to see something similar at the same time next year for us to present, so that we can start drawing out some trends and seeing if there's anything wider to look at. Seeing hands go up. Great.
Can't do a hand, but yes.
Oh, lovely. Now I know how influencers feel. That's all popping up on my screen. Thank you. Right. Okay. That's a firm yes. Awesome. Let's just have a little look at in the last few minutes at income, benchmarking by income. We might do some sessions for benchmarking by sector, but we need to do more work to properly define that to be able to tell important stories. We have the data to talk about charities by income, and we've done a fairly roughshod approach following the Charity Commission levels of under 1 million, 1 to 10, 10 to 50, and 50 plus. So interesting, of all the wills that have been completed, the larger charities have had seen most completions through our platform, followed by the medium, 1 to 10 million. And I think most of the people in this room in that cohort. And the smaller charities account for fewer of the gifts overall. And I don't know why that is. This is not the end of the story. If you are a small charity, do not leave now. There is a redemption arc in this narrative. Marie.
So this is will completion rates. So largest charities have got the highest completion rates, and the smallest charities have got the lowest completion rate. So this is basically out of all the wills that your supporters start, you've got a percentage that don't ever get completed, but this is looking at the percentage of those that are completed. Okay, so it's similar to the last graph where the larger charities basically looking like they've got the volume, that could be to do with the reach that they've got. But it's still quite level. So if you think about it, 52% of wills are completed by large charities, 44 by small. That's actually quite close,
Yeah. But then the story flips. If you are in a small charity, your supporters who get through the process are really, really likely to leave a gift to you. So the people who are completing the wills are incredibly valuable. Major charities, 50 million plus charities, people are more likely to make a will and not leave a gift for various different reasons. You will probably know more about why that is yourself. But we're seeing a really strong 50 to 70% completion rates in everything under 50 million.
So here we're going to look at the actual, out of those wills that are completed, the percentage of who is leaving residuary gifts against pecuniary gifts. So you can see there's a bit of a disparity. The major charities, 50 million pluses, they've got quite a high percentage of the gifts being pecuniary gifts and a lower percentage being residuary. And then if you look at the smaller charities, they've got a higher percentage of people leaving residuary gifts and a lower percentage of people leaving pecuniary gifts. And then the middle ones are sort of pretty much even.
Yeah. Finally, let's take a quick look at the gift types. So of those residuary gifts, sorry, we split them into contingent 100%, but only if my other residuary beneficiaries die, versus a stated percentage of the estate. And it's the same story. More and more residuary and contingent residuaries in the small charities. I think you could draw a line there just about, especially if there aren't any statistics maths tutors in the audience. So one more slides.
So yeah, this is showing the average age of pledges. So basically it's pretty, standard, around that 50. We've seen it in all the slides, that demographic, the sort of 50 age group are completing wills, they're including gifts. So yeah.
Hurrah for the
That's really strong.
the mid-50s.
Yeah.
Not often you hear that. So there we go. Larger charities, larger volumes, more gifts. But smaller charities, the bang for the buck is much higher, with a really great proportion of residuary gifts versus pecuniary gifts. So why is that number low? I think we can think why larger charities get more through is because of the greater awareness, but smaller charities, well, if they have lots of gifts, residuary gifts in particular, they can have a very quick growth arc over the next 10 years, 20 years. Any questions about that? If you've got anything you want to say off platform to us, do get in touch. whether it's to book your quarterly catch-ups with us. We love those. We want to come in and want to talk about your campaigns and talk about you compared to the benchmarks. Or if you've got any suggestions for future Legacy Loop sessions, do please get in touch. But otherwise, has anyone got any questions or comments about the size and the benchmarking by charity size, or any questions about anything else that we've said in today's session?
So we've got a question in the chat from Katie. She said she'd like to understand and get more insight into repeat will writers. So do we know people who are on their second wills, etc., and what is the impact on the gifts, revisions, and things like that?
Really good question. We have not gathered that for this session, but it's something which we could look into for future sessions. Would anybody else find that at all useful? Yeah, okay. I'll ask the devs to see if we can track that historical data through the monthly reports. Anecdotally, I know that when people update their will, as a solicitor in private practice, my first question will be, how are you? My second question will be, have you already got a will, and can I have it? Because that effectively halves the amount of work you've got to do. So you look at the old one and say, is there anything you want to change? And they will say, yes, so-and-so's died, this person's had a grandkid, I want to switch this person because they're no better than they ought to be. And then you copy everything else across. And instead of having multiple hours, multiple revisions, you can do something very, very quickly. If the charity's in there, typically, unless someone says they want to remove it, you'll just copy it across. Do you want to change anything is the main question from solicitors. But we'll see on platform whether people over time increase, decrease, change their gifts. Any other questions? We've got a couple more minutes before the hour is out. Anyone in the room? Well, I think we're going to definitely do this again next spring. To look at the trends, see what trends we can draw out, see if there's any differences. Do please book in for your quarterlies so that we can talk to you and see if there's anything that you might want more information about or guidance on the will writing side of things and around the stats. But otherwise, book in for next session about getting hero stories, getting case studies, and we'll be in touch in the meantime. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.